Hello, Eddie. Thanks for joining us for Box Office. As you know, we are calculating other people's money, you know.
Can't we count your money?
I have no money.
No, come on.
Yes. Listen, just to give you a short idea of today's interview, we're going to build it of 3 sections. Section number 1, the story of Eddie Hearn. Section number 2, business side of Matchroom. And section number 3, like TV, competitors, fighters. Many people know Eddie Hearn, but not too many know about Eddie Hearn. So this is to educate people about your personality. It's a hectic week now. Like just a couple days before the event, the huge event, the worldwide event. And my first question is whether you've got any tickets for me.
I wish we had another 100,000 tickets.
No, just kidding. So you were born 8th of June 1979 in a family of Barry Hearn, a prominent businessman in sports. And you studied at school and college. So just a couple words, how was it? What was your dream when you were a kid? What you knew about your father's business by the time?
Well, sport was sort of the most important thing in my life as a kid because my dad was sport mad. He'd always played at a good level at a lot of stuff, but never excelled at anything. And as a young kid, whether it was football or cricket or rugby or boxing, you know, we would play all sports. Table tennis, darts, like me and my dad were so competitive. And he would never let me win, ever. Doesn't matter when I was 6 years old or when I was 16, he would never ever let me win. And he's the same now with my children, right? Table tennis, whatever. So life for me, you know, my dad came from a very humble background, lived in a council estate in East London, and he was a working class guy. So when he started to make money and I was born, he was very conscious that he didn't want me to be the kid that he hated growing up, you know, with money or spoil or, you know. But at the same time, he made money, so he wanted to try and give his family a good life. So growing up was really, everything was sport-based. I grew up around his business and he was away a lot. So I would be with my mum a lot and he would be traveling. He used to run all the snooker events around the world, a lot in Asia and China. And then turned to boxing probably when I was about 8 years old. And I followed him to every show from 8 or 9, really. And I would go with him to the show and I would just disappear, you know, opening doors, going in there, seeing fighters. And I would also be in the gym a lot, just watching. So, and I became, you know, these guys when I was 9, 10, 11, 12, they were like my heroes. You know, Chris Eubank, Nazim Hamed, Lennox Lewis, Frank Bruno, all these people. And I would see them spar and, you know, and as a kid to see this macho world, you know, was exciting. I also was always on my dad's shoulder when he was at the shows, at home, you know, on phone calls, having arguments, drama, you know, everything. And I would go through that with him. And it was an exciting world. I would also witness the downside, which was the pressure, the arguments, the stress, as you know, that boxing brings. And that's just, it doesn't matter what era you work in boxing in, that is, that exists. As a kid, I sort of a bit disappointed with myself at school because when I'm hanging around with those people, I don't respect the teachers. You know, when I was at school, I got these guys telling me what to do and telling me off. And I'm thinking, I was with Frank Bruno last night. Who are you? You know, and I was never great at school academically. Then went to a college. I actually got asked to leave my school. And then I had to go to a college, a very normal college. And that worked well for me because they didn't tell me off. They just said, it's up to you. You know, and that actually made me work. Whereas where they were telling me off, I would fight that, you know, and I would want to. So, yeah, a privileged background, but also with a dad that was insistent on hard work. I played sport to a good level, never good enough to turn professional at anything. But, you know, sort of subconsciously grew up in the world of boxing without ever thinking, I was going to work in boxing, just that I loved to be around it and the excitement of the shows. I would carry the fighters' belts out for world championship fights. You know, I was just Barry's son. You know, little Eddie. I was Eddie, get him in, Eddie. You know, and I was like the kid in all the photos and stuff like that. So at the time, I didn't know I was getting the grounding that would put me in great stead to understand the sport and to know the sport.
Right. What was your first job, actually? How did you make it, and did you earn any money with it?
So I used to work for my dad in the summers when I was sort of 15, 16. And then when I left college, everyone always said to me, well, you're going to go and work for your dad anyway. So why do you need to, you know? So, and I hated that, you know, because growing up, I was always, what I said earlier, Barry's son.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Barry's son. You're Barry Hearn's son. And again, at the time, I would love it. Yeah, my dad's Barry Hearn. Yeah. But as you get older, you start to think, well, I don't want to be Barry Hearn's son. I want to be me. And when I left college, I didn't want to work for him because I thought it's so obvious. So I went out and I wrote to all the sports marketing and sports management companies in London. And I ended up working for a big sports management company for about 4 or 5 years, getting my grounding. But when I went for the interview for the job, they would look at my CV and say, can I ask you, are you Barry Hearn's son? And I say, yeah. They said, what are you doing here? You know, what? I said, I want to do it on my own. You know, eventually I always knew, you know, a son's role, there was nothing my dad wanted more than me to run the business when I was older. But I had to go into the real world and learn. And that's what I did for about 5 or 6 years.
What was your first involvement in Matchroom?
So after that period with a sports management company, when I first joined Matchroom, I was representing golfers at the time.
Golfers?
Yeah, professional golf. I was a sports agent. So this company that I was working with, they were representing golfers, and then I set up a golf division at Matchroom and took them to the business. And that was on the European tour and the PGA tour in America. So I would manage probably about 20 golfers on the tours, you know, and I'd be flying around tournament to tournament. And then after that, we started to get involved in televised poker tournaments. And we were the biggest supplier of televised poker content. All the stuff you used to watch on TV was pretty much Matchroom's. And for about 4 or 5 years, we made a lot of money producing that content for big poker sites, obviously ad-funded and sponsor-led programming.
So Matchroom invented?
Yeah, pretty much televised poker. I mean, it was done before us, but not at this kind of level. You know, big tournaments, $1 million buy-ins, I mean, all around the world. And that was a really successful time for the business. We were doing prize fighter then, and my dad, at the time, Sky, which are a major broadcaster, had 4 promoters in boxing.
Yeah.
My dad, who'd kind of like semi-retired, Frank Warren, Ricky Hatton, and Frank Maloney. And my dad was doing bits and pieces for Frank Warren. It was still his main business. And we were doing some prize fighters, which was like this one-night event. And I said to my dad, look, why don't we start trying again in boxing? Because he was doing tiny shows and like just 6 a year and just... he said, look, I don't want to do boxing anymore. I can't stand it. You know, I'm doing snooker, I'm doing darts, we're making all this money, we're doing poker. Everyone's so nice to us. I've been in boxing, I don't want to do it anymore. So I said, well, I'd like to do it. And he sort of said, look, you know, boxing's dead. All our shows, they're in leisure centres with 400 people. I said, yeah, but it only takes someone to push it, to make it big again, to make great fights. No. I said, well, look, let me go through this process. And that was when I met Audley Harrison. You know, we went through, won the European title and ended up fighting David Haye. And from there, I wanted to retire from boxing because it was the worst night of my life. You know, I'd sold this...
Tell please about that night.
Yeah, so I met Audley Harrison on a poker table in Las Vegas. And we were playing poker and he said, oh, you know, Matchroom do boxing, don't you? And I said, not really, like small. And he went, look, could you give me a fight? You know, I still think I've got a lot to offer. And Audley was a big star in the UK. He'd won Olympic gold. So, you know, people knew who he was. He was 6'7", like huge. And I phoned my dad and I said, no, I've just met Audley Harrison. I said, I think I can promote him. He went, he's useless. He said, what? He said, he's terrible. I don't, you know. So anyway, I got talking to Audley and I put him in prize fighter. I said to Audley, I'm going to put you in prize fighter, you're going to win it. Then I'm going to get you a shot at the European title, you're going to win it. And then we're going to fight David Haye for the world title. And he was like, I didn't know what I was doing, you know. And he went, okay. Anyway, next thing, he went in prize fighter, he won it. He beat Michael Sprott for the European title. And next thing, I was in Las Vegas negotiating with David Haye for the world heavyweight title. We did it in Manchester, sold out instantly, pushed the pay-per-view, did hundreds of thousands of buys. And then on the night, Audley didn't throw a punch. And it was the worst fight ever. And people were throwing things at me, leaving the arena. And I said to myself after that night, I'm done in boxing. What an amazing experience. Like, I've just got the world heavyweight title, you know. And then afterwards, people wouldn't stop phoning me. You know, they'd be phoning me, fighters, managers, a Matchroom back in boxing. You know, look what you've done with Audley. I've got this guy, he's so much better than Audley Harrison, and you could do it. And we signed Darren Barker, Kell Brook, and Froch, all within 3 weeks of that fight. And then I said to my dad, the one thing at Sky was, with 4 promoters, you imagine working for a broadcaster now with 4 other promoters that all hated each other, right? So no one's helping, everyone's working against each other, everyone's trying to counter-program, everyone's trying to pull a fight, stop a fight. Mm-hmm. And I said, what we need to do is, Sky need to have 1 promoter. It's the only way it can work. Give someone, instead of giving 4 people 5 dates, give someone 20 dates. Let them build the sport, build a stable.
Monopoly.
And it was like, we don't do that, you know. We've got these partners and we like everybody. And I said, yeah, but it's just a waste of time. You like him, so you give him 5 shows. But they're useless. So, you know, you need, no. I said, well, look, I'm going to show you what we're going to do, and then we'll have another conversation. So I went out, I started hiring big arenas. Mm-hmm. I started growing our following across social media and Twitter and Instagram, which was just sort of coming into its prime or launching it at its time. And then from there, we sold out the Sheffield Arena with Kell Brook against Matthew Hatton with 8,000 people. Then we went to Nottingham. We did Carl Froch against Lucien Boutte in front of 8,000 people. Epic night. And the ratings were huge on Sky. And then I started to get their attention. And I said, you have to give me all the dates. And I think 5 or 6 months later, the contracts were up. Mm-hmm. And they gave me all the dates on Sky. And that was the moment, really, because as you know, you can be a great promoter, you can have a great stable of fighters. Without a broadcaster and without TV money, you have no chance. So when I got that position, that enabled me to be in a dominant position for British boxing. And that's really how the journey started.
You're one of the most successful promoters in the world now. What is the fight you're proud of most? 2
really that stand out. One is the Froch Groves fight at Wembley in front of 80,000, because 1, Froch won, and 2, it was the first major stadium show that we'd done. And I was close with Froch as well. And I signed him at a time where he wasn't getting what he deserved financially. Mm-hmm. And then he made a lot of money on that fight. And that made me very proud. And 2 more, actually. The first one is Joshua Klitschko. Mm-hmm. Because it was so far before his time that he went in with really no experience, no understanding of what boxing was and what it took. Just heart and strength and power. And obviously knocked Vlad down. Mm-hmm. He got up and you were there, you know. Knocked him down. Vlad knocked AJ down. He came back in the 11th. That was an incredible night. And probably AJ against Ruiz too. Mm-hmm. Because everything, like, that was it. You know, it was, the first fight was devastating. Right. But the second fight was, it's only when you get 24 hours out and you go, this is it. Like, if you lose this fight, back-to-back defeats, where do you go? You're having 10 rounders to I mean, you know, and the pressure on that night was unbelievable for everyone. So, yeah, that was it as well. But, you know, sometimes you always have to remember why you fell in love, right? It doesn't matter whether it's a relationship, mm-hmm. or it's your business or it's sport. You have to look back and remember that feeling that you had. Now, you can fall out of love, and I think that can happen in boxing particularly, and it can happen in a relationship. But you should always strip it back to how you felt that time. And in boxing, it's very easy to do that. And again, you have to just remember it's a sport. Yes, it's a business as well, but if you can make decisions based on the fact that it's a sport, sometimes that's much better than making decisions based on the fact that it's a business. So I think, but that's sometimes you just got to strip it back and remember why you have a passion for something. Because when business can get you down, you know, problems can get you down, and then you start thinking to yourself, why? I can't tell you how many times I've thought, why do I do this? Oh, well, you've got a good business, it's making a lot of money. Yeah, but you know, who needs this? Up all night on the phone, problems, you know, because you remember how much you love it. That's why. And you remember the great nights.
Right.
Eddie Hearn became the head of Matchroom Boxing in 2012. Within just several years, he brought the company to the leading position in the UK. The further way of development was evident. The young promoter had a dream to conquer the biggest and most profitable boxing market in the world, the United States. It was complicated, as everything there had been shared among old established companies. But Hearn was ready to compete with the local boxing giants. He started to promote the fighters who were attractive for US boxing fans. From the very beginning, the boss of Matchroom intended to introduce his main star, Anthony Joshua. However, he realized that AJ's appearance should be well prepared. So Hearn started to look for the American heavyweight who would get active support of fans in the fight with Joshua. The choice fell on Gerald Miller. Hearn started to promote the fight in New York for the charismatic American, introducing him at different media events.
Ladies and gentlemen, headlining this card, big New York, round of applause, Brooklyn, out of Brooklyn, Jarrell Big Baby Miller.
The Joshua Miller bout was scheduled for summer 2019. The legendary Madison Square Garden was booked for upcoming mega fight. Prior to the fight, Miller was tested positive for doping. But Hearn decided not to cancel the presentation of his star in the States and signed Andy Ruiz as the new opponent for AJ. Ruiz knocked Joshua out, so British champion and his promoter suddenly lost in front of a huge crowd of American boxing fans. Hearn failed to subdue the USA this time, but he still did not give up the idea to conquer the overseas market of professional boxing.
You've taken your company to the brand new level, to the leading position here in the UK and in Europe, and you invaded the United States. How did America host you? Is there a big difference between...
Yeah, they weren't particularly hospitable, you know, the business anyway. You know, the fans have been, and, you know, we've made good inroads, 3 years there now, coming from a standing start, you know, and we didn't come into the marketplace with Fox or with HBO. We came in with DAZN, you know, a brand new streaming platform that no one knew anything about in America, you know, and we had to fight and fight and fight. They spent a lot of money. They got brand recognition. They got Canelo Alvarez. They got Gennady Golovkin and many more. And we got brand recognition. The business, as you know, doesn't like disruptors. You know, I'm talking about the old school. So Bob Arum, Al Haymon, Golden Boy, it doesn't matter. They don't want me there, you know, and I wouldn't want me here. You know what I mean? If I was them, I wouldn't want Eddie Hearn coming over to, what's he doing? Get him out, get him out. So that's the fight that you're in, but that kind of motivates you also in a sick way. And that's what it was like for me in the UK when I came. Frank Warrer and all these other guys, no, like, who is this guy? Like, what, he's coming into our territory. So America's been amazing. It's such a different market in America to the UK. And you've seen both sides, you know. You can go to America, boxing is the 10th or 20th most important sport. to sports fans.
Right.
In the UK, it's third or second or fourth, or it's right up there. In the US, there's very little loyalty for your own, I feel. Like, so if you're from Philadelphia, it doesn't mean that when you fight, the whole of Philadelphia is behind you, right? Whereas here, it's very different.
Yeah,
so
different.
it's about understanding the market. It's about persistence. Because it's easy to say boxing's dead in America. Everyone says it all the time. Boxing can be dead in America if you don't put on the good enough fights. If you put on good fights, it works. And that's the same everywhere in the world, because boxing is historic. People talk about UFC, it's taken over from boxing. No. UFC is current, it's sexy. Boxing is historic.
Right.
So it will always exist, but if you don't put the good fights on, then it will. It will go into extinction.
Your vision on competition. Who you consider your direct rival? Is it Haymon, Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, maybe Frank Warren?
Yeah, I think in the UK, I don't, sounds arrogant, but there's not one person that I see as a competitor on our level at all. In America, it's very different. There's three main promotional companies: PBC, Matchroom and Top Rank, really. Golden Boy, smaller, but still, been around a long time. Top Rank are a great business. They have a fantastic deal with ESPN. They're probably the closest thing to us in terms of brand building, production, social media, and credibility that exists. PBC, very aggressive. Al Haymon obviously has great relationships with fighters. I don't understand the business at times, to be honest with you, but if you try and understand it, you'll drive yourself crazy. So yeah, I think in America it's really PBC and Top Rank, and it's been harder than I expected in the US. Maybe I was a little bit naive that I'd just go in with this huge pot of money and just wipe everyone out, but we'll get there.
Max Schmeling won the heavyweight championship of the world in June of 1930, 8 years ago from Jack Sharkey.
Professional boxing has been transmitted on TV since the creation of television. Before that, fighters' and promoters' profits depended on the number of tickets sold. Later, TV became a driving financial force in the sports, and collaboration with highly rated TV stations became imperative for the business. The TV revenues have multiple times exceeded the earnings from ticket sales. At first, TV channels broadcasted the fights, but never promoted any fighter or event. Newspapers, radio, and rumors were the only source to learn about boxers, their chances, and backstage intrigues. Later, various boxing talk shows, studios, and other promo projects appeared. An episodic TV product turned into a regular one. In the second part of the last century, American TV giants HBO and Showtime invaded the professional boxing. Their competition ended up with a special system of broadcasting called pay-per-view. Documentaries and boxing TV series appeared to introduce the top boxing shows. Press conferences, public workouts, and weigh-ins became the live feed on TV. This is how TV finally swallowed up the professional boxing. Nowadays, regular TV is losing its positions. Streaming platforms like DAZN took the leading role at the PPV market. The shows are promoted by websites, social media, bloggers, and common fans, as all you need for that is will, internet, and camera on your phone. The market got rich with new players, and they are diverse. Therefore, television has to adapt to the currents and comply with the new rules.
Pay-per-view, how it works? Is it kind of Russian roulette, or it's cool mind calculation?
Yeah, it depends on the fighter. It depends on the star. Like with AJ, you don't panic much on the pay-per-view. You just know the levels. The market is changing with the launch of DAZN in the UK and the ability to make pay-per-view fights on DAZN as part of your monthly subscription. I think there's a big problem with pay-per-view in America, a huge problem. And you're seeing now that price point slowly starting to drop. It used to be $100.
Yeah.
Then it was $90. Then it was $79.99. Then it's $69.99. Now you're seeing some that are $49.99, So, and quite right. I mean, that's a lot of money for one night of boxing. And now you're seeing pay-per-views every month. So I'm very worried about the pay-per-view market in America. It's not something that we're involved with yet, with DAZN, because of the model. But I really think that pay-per-view in America at that price point is in big trouble.
Your deal with Sky Sports expired. Your new deal with DAZN is at place. But Sky Sports is with Top Rank. How will it influence your business here? And what are your plans with DAZN?
It was a difficult decision for us because we've been with them for 20 years, and me personally 8 years. There was a lot of things that I wanted to do. The main focus is that the investment from DAZN in the UK was many times more than the investment from Sky. Sky's business is always geared towards pay-per-view, which is fine for Joshua Usyk,
right.
But the problem is 5-6 events a year where I was getting a lot of criticism, and now we can do the same fights but just as part of your subscription.
Right.
And of course the global presence of DAZN as well. I also wanted to do the production for our live events because I felt that you create an event, you tell the story, and then you get to fight night and it's not got your hands on it, it's up to them how they do it. And I didn't get that. I wanted to use our own talent, our own commentary team, everything. I believe streaming is the future. I believe in Len Blavatnik and Access and the brilliant team at DAZN. And yeah, it was a life-changing deal for our business and our family and our fighters, because it enabled us to go in, do new contracts with them. I mean, the great thing about us leaving is the purses are going up everywhere. Sky did a deal for US shows with Top Rank. They do UK shows with a company called Boxer. They're paying loads of money. We're paying loads of money. The fighters are, congratulations. Yeah, it's good. So it's good for the marketplace. And it was a tough decision for us because, we like the people at Sky, but it was just, I needed someone that matched our global ambition. And that was DAZN.
DAZN, Thriller, ESPN, YouTube, social media. Is this the future of boxing?
I believe
Video
so.
on demand?
Yeah, I think streaming is the future of boxing. On demand is, of course, the future of boxing. And the linear broadcasters will remain, but they will adapt. They will follow the streaming pattern as well. The fact now that if you're a fight fan, you can watch DAZN on your phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your big screen. I mean, this just makes the audience so much bigger. And when you look at the on-demand numbers, even better, because the fight comes in at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, just wake up, boom, just watch that straight away. Like, this is the future, and obviously the growth of Netflix and Amazon and other huge apps make it so easy. It's just what people get used to. If you look at the new generation of viewers. My kids, I mean, they've never watched Sky. They don't know what Sky is. I mean, it's just Netflix and YouTube. Right. That's it, or maybe Disney Plus, and any other app they can get on their device. That's all they're bothered about, So this is the future. The hardest thing about the transition will be the older generation of fan. Me, actually, and you, where luckily we know how to do it, but there are many people that still can't get their head round the fact that I don't want to stream it. And people also not understanding you can watch it on your smart TV. I want to watch it on my TV. Yeah. You can, so it's just education.
Saul Alvarez, Canelo, 365 million deal, DAZN, Canelo. Is it reasonable money? I mean, can you make any profit with that kind of obligations in front of the fighter?
Yeah, I mean, I think when a broadcaster like DAZN go into a marketplace, there's many things you have to consider. You need to penetrate the market. You have to build brand profile and brand recognition, and you have to drive subscribers. So it's not just the simple maths of how many subscribers does that fight generate. It's the viewership numbers, it's the retention rate, it's how long those subscribers may stay, it's the brand profile of the zone, it's the value of the international rights. So the bigger problem with that deal was that just the way it was structured, and for me the communication broke down. But we've seen through the Callum Smith fight, even the Yildirim fight, and particularly the Billy Joe Saunders fight, the pull power of Canelo Alvarez. There's no one else like him in America, like not even close. Now that Floyd's not fighting, and he's a surefire hit. It's never really any risk with Canelo. It's a bit like AJ. You talk about, okay, this fight with Usyk, will it do 900? Will it do 1 million? It's not. It might do 2. No, it won't. So those kind of guys are very valuable.
Stars in boxing. How you create them? Is it just part of promoters or just a matter of personalities?
Both. I think that it's hard to sell a fighter with no personality, but at the same time, everyone has a story and everyone has their own personality. And it's difficult to say to a fighter, you've got to get out there, you've got to get your personality across. Ultimately, you have to find a niche and a way of what that fighter is. I think the worst thing you can do is tell a fighter to be like this, or to do this, to be like that, do this. Look at Usyk. He's a great example of someone that actually, we know he's funny, but to the naked eye, doesn't really have much personality. So you build the fact that he's a bit weird, he's a bit crazy, he's quirky. He doesn't even speak English, really. I mean, he can, but he chooses not to. But that's okay, because that's him. He is this strange, quirky guy, and it's worked for him, and he's endearing to people. People like him. So that's fine. If you're a loudmouth, you're a loudmouth. If you like to throw things, you like to throw things. If you want to be a nice guy, you're a nice guy. But you have to have your individual personality. And people need to know about you and know your story. This is what all of this is. It's storytelling. This is just, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, which means we're all living in a play, right? And these fighters, they're actors in this mad boxing world. They're athletes as well. But you have to produce content, show the narrative, show the story. So many fighters have great stories, and it's impossible to tell everyone. But if you do, and then the public engage, that's when you're on to a good thing.
We've promoted Usyk for 3 fights. You made the LOMA fight. Your impression on those guys, on those Ukrainians?
Very, very talented, very skilled, mentally strong. Different kind of backgrounds. I think whenever tough people. I mean, look, their lives have changed a lot. If you go and document where they came from and where it started to what they have now, and that can change you a little bit, it can soften you a little bit, but good, genuine people. Like when we talk about my relationship with AJ and the trust, all my dealings with Usyk have been through you. But I've always still got the feeling that actually Usyk looks at me and Matchroom and goes, they've been honest with me, they've been good to me, they've never lied, they've never crossed the line, and therefore, I'm not saying I'll work with them forever, but they have my respect. And I think that's how genuinely the world is, but especially those kind of people. If you're honest, if you're a good person to them, if they gain your trust, they will be loyal back.
Do you think you could make better career for Loma if you signed him for United Kingdom?
It's tough because there's enough hardcore fans here to allow him to fill stadiums. Like I said, the pay-per-view, he's not a star to the casual fan. The problem would be with boxing him in London is how many times could you do it, So if I promoted Loma in December here, I would fill the O2. Now, could I do it in March? or April, you know. And the reason that we sold out the Loma Campbell fight is because it was the unique one-off. It was the first time he'd been back boxing in the UK since the Olympics in London 2012, you know. So it's how many times you can go to the well. Ultimately, it depends on the fights he's in. You know, if there's a great British lightweight, etc. But yeah, he would certainly sell much better in the UK than he does in America.
Luke Campbell was the second Eddie Hearn's fighter to face Vasily Lomachenko. Before that, the Ukrainian defended his belts against Anthony Crolla. Despite the fight took place in America, its organizer, Bob Arum, did not dare to go with a pay-per-view. Instead, he preferred a fold in his hand and showed the fight on ESPN with the guaranteed money. Hearn was a bit surprised with such a precaution of his experienced colleague. Earlier, Lomachenko visited Manchester to support Alexander Usyk, and Eddie Hearn saw that he was as popular in Britain as he was in the United States. Therefore, the promoter decided that fans would be willing to pay for the fight of the Ukrainian star against a local top fighter. This bout happened in summer of 2019. It was the second time within last 6 months when the fighters, promoted by Arum and Hearn, met in the ring. And this time, Vasily had the British opponent Luke Campbell. The fight took place in the capital of Great Britain. The Englishman Hearn was promoting it, and the fight was on pay-per-view. Lomachenko flawlessly outscored Campbell. The judges gave just one round to Eddie Hearn's fighter, but this was not his only disappointment. The sports failure came in a row with a financial loss.
Biggest loss, biggest win, I mean profitable.
The biggest loss was Lomachenko against Luke Campbell, here. Because I fell in love. What I did, I made the big mistake of being a boxing fan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I did.
And looking at it and going, this is massive. You know, this is Lomachenko, pound for pound #1. The British fight fans love him. Everybody knows him. And we filled the O2 up, but the pay-per-view was very poor. And it cost me a lot of money. And Bob Arum came, didn't lose any money, in fact, made money while I lost money. And that hurt even more. But yeah, that was a tough night. And then financially, the Joshua Ruiz rematch. Joshua made a lot of money that night, so did we. But when you strip it back to sport again, not once did he think about in camp or on the night, or same with me, how much money are we making tonight? When we got paid, we did, but it was never about that. It was just about winning. So consistency is key. You know, you know that some life is like this, but the more you can stay consistent, you have to make decisions without emotion. You know, once you get emotion, once you get angry, once you get passionate, we'll do this. That's when you start making mistakes. And I did that with Luke Campbell. You know, we could have gone to America. I could have taken my commission off the purse, like Bob Arum did. Yes. Very smart. Yeah. But I said, no, let's do that in London. You know, it was coming off the back of the AJ defeat to Ruiz as well. And I thought, we have to do something. You know, we have to make a statement. Yeah, we'll bring Lomachenko to London. And, you know, the rest is history.
So, what was the biggest purse you ever paid to the fighter?
Joshua Ruiz too.
Got it.
Yeah. And that was a one-off.
What is the revenue, I mean the turnover of your company, annual?
Well, the EBITDA, which is earnings before interest and tax, as a Matchroom Sport, is sitting at about £25 million
per year.
A year at the moment. And that's expected to double over the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
There's the financial plan.
Yes, with the DAZN deal, obviously the DAZN UK deal was a huge deal for us, and also their growth globally. You know, with the US deal and the Italy deal and the Spanish deal and the Australian deal coming, and Mexico. It's a big moment for our business. But you know, for those people watching this who don't understand Matchroom, boxing is 30 to 40% of the business. You know, darts, snooker, golf, pool, fishing, bowling, table tennis, gymnastics. We are a sports powerhouse of content and live events. But boxing, yeah, probably 40% now of the business.
So you are the driving force in Matchroom Boxing.
Yeah, I mean, my father now, who's 73, has stepped down as chairman of Matchroom Sport. He is now the president. And I've taken over his office. He still comes in most days in a smaller office. And I don't want him to go because he's an excellent mind. And two, if he didn't do it, I think he'd just get old quickly.
Yeah.
So I have taken on additional responsibilities across different sports. Boxing will always remain my passion, and I will always be the face of Matchroom Boxing. But we have around 35 employees now within the boxing department. The main one, of course, you know so well, is Frank Smith, who is a tremendous operator. Couldn't be in better hands with him, and it works well because Frank is not a front man. He doesn't want to be out doing press conferences and hours of interviews, yet he is an operational genius. He puts all this stuff together. He understands law, he understands fighters, he understands broadcasters, and obviously we have multiple divisions across the boxing. So I will always head that business up, but Frank now is the nuts and bolts. You would have found that in this build up to this fight, you spoke to him probably more than you speak to me, whereas,
Absolutely.
2 years ago it would have been very different. But
Correct.
I'm still aware of every conversation, and if there's a problem that he has to come to me on, which he would have many times during our negotiations, we work together, but I want to give him as much responsibility as possible. That's how you get the best out of people, and your team. You make it enjoyable, but you give them responsibility. You give them the chance to shine and flourish.
Right.
And if you do that, you can sometimes unearth greatness, and that's what we've done with Frank.
Is he getting any profit shares?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, we love to reward our staff because one, if you don't, you could lose them.
Right.
And two, it motivates them, and they deserve it. And that's something that we do across the board with all our employees, is build them into the bonus structure of the business, because that's ultimately, if it's not your own business, how do you stay motivated? Right? And you do that by enjoying your job, being a motivated person and trying to rise to a challenge, and to get paid. Right? That's the ultimate thing. So if you're out there as a business making loads of money, and these hard-working key team members are out there going, well, Frank will be someone. He's on our board for Matchroom Boxing, he's on the main board for Matchroom Sport, and he is someone that I see running the whole business one day. And, he's financially doing very well, and he deserves it.
Did you ever think of bringing to IPO?
I think it's inevitable. I think my dad has always said, I will never sell equity in Matchroom, I will never IPO, and my feeling is quite different. I think, and he now is starting to agree with me. We've had half a dozen approaches from private equity firms to banks to float, and I said to him, look, as a family business, you can only go so far, right? So we sit there now, we could be at £50 million EBITDA. There's not many companies that are making that kind of profit. So
especially
the valuation of the business in this time, right now, is something that he would never have imagined. So I said, you can't turn your back on that. We have to explore it. Now, what we don't want is to not be able to make our own decisions. Because when you go from a family business to a stock-listed company, things change. And things sometimes don't become as enjoyable. One of the great things about our business is we do whatever we want. Right? We make the decisions. If you don't like it, fuck off. Right? That changes, and the responsibility changes with a stock-listed company.
Of course.
But so does the money. and not just the money, the potential growth, And yes, we have unbelievable growth in so many different territories, but taking it to that level enables you to really make a difference in sport.
I agree. Recently, we've seen some strange things happening to boxing, like veterans returning, Roy Jones, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, like Mayweather's fight, performing all those exhibitions. Some YouTubers are fighting, whoever, UFC fighters. Is it just a matter of time, or what's happening to these sports? Is it for a lifetime, or it will end soon?
I think it's the world we live in now, where a TikToker or a YouTuber can be a global star and can do anything they want and get people to watch it or pay to watch it. And when people are prepared to pay to watch something, there's always the danger that this exists. I mean, I feel partly responsible because I did KSI against Logan Paul 3 years ago at the Staples Centre, but it's gone to another level. I don't mind the Jake Paul, Tyrone Woodley, you know, Jake Paul's in proper training camps, he's sparring, he's fighting, not really boxers, but at least fighters, you know, in UFC guys. I thought the Mayweather-Logan Paul thing was terrible. Like, you don't put a YouTuber in with a pound-for-pound great. The veteran thing, for me, is a disgrace. You know, you look at the Evander Holyfield fight last week, and when you talk about great cruiserweights, I mean, there's a guy who was just a legend of the sport.
Right.
Yet people abused him in his career to the point where he needs this now, you know? And if you go back across his resume, how can someone leave the sport needing to do something like that now when he beat and was in the fights that he was in? And the even worse thing is, two things. Firstly is the commission, allowing a 58, 59-year-old guy to fight that should never be allowed in the ring again. And secondly, the people around him. You know, the same problem with why they're here in the first place. Because it became about money. No one cared for him. Even now, you know, anyone that's in that team, in the gym with him, should be ashamed of themselves. Because they're just, what? They know he shouldn't be fighting. Of course, they don't take a rocket scientist, and they're all making money. You know, we all like to make money.
Yeah.
But you would never see Bob Arum or Warren even doing that with a 59-year-old fighter.
I agree.
Because they love the sport too much. You know, we all love the sport.
Okay.
And that is really sad. And we have to be careful as a sport that doesn't become the norm. I actually think it will die out. I think give it another 6 months, a year, the numbers will start to fall. Boxing will never disappear in its real form, as long as we keep making good fights.
What do you think of Wladimir Klitschko comeback? Possible comeback.
I mean, I discussed this with him and DAZN, you know, maybe 2 years ago or something, and he's still capable of beating great heavyweights. It's just when the hunger goes, like, and you're fighting young, hungry men. Like when he boxed AJ, he came face to face with a young lion, right? Who was nowhere near as good as him, or nowhere near as experienced, but he was just not going to give up. And to face that kind of young lion, and he was still hungry, Wladimir, then, he talked to himself, this is my last big one, I'm going to put everything into this fight. Now, you don't need it. You miss it, but you don't need it. And if you don't need boxing for the reasons of money, or the reasons of competition, and, you know, you have to stay away, especially in the heavyweight division, because there will be some young, hungry lion that's ready to tear you apart.
Here they are, ladies and gentlemen, 4 Olympic gold medal champions, Katie Taylor, Luke Campbell, Dr. Steelhammer, Wladimir Klitschko, AJ Anthony Joshua.
In 2013, Eddie Hearn signed the Olympic champion of London 2012, young and hungry lion, Anthony Joshua. Soon, AJ became the leader of his boxing pride.
What do you think happens on Saturday night? I win.
After 3 years in pros, Joshua won his first champion's belt. From then to now, he remains the principal star of Matchroom Boxing and the driving force to generate its biggest profits. Each successful promoter used to have a leading fighter in his team. Sometimes there can be even more, For instance, Eddie Hearn is also promoting Saul Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Triple G Golovkin. This cooperation happened due to fighters' contract with DAZN. However, working with Anthony is a completely different matter. Hearn and AJ have been working non-stop for a long time. Therefore, their cooperation is more than just business. They are friends. From the middle of 2013 until the end of 2021, Hearn has organized 26 fights for Joshua, and 11 of them were for the world titles. His fights with Klitschko and Ruiz were among the top events that generated considerable money for Anthony and Matchroom Boxing. In September 2021, Anthony Joshua faced the opponent who was very familiar to his promoter. Eddie Hearn earlier co-promoted the fights of Alexander Usyk with Tony Bellew, with Chaz Witherspoon and Derek Chisora. The co-promotional contract between Usyk and Hearn expired in 2020. In 1 year, they crossed their roads again, but this time, Eddie represented the interest of Alexander's opponent. The result of Usyk-Joshua fight became the reason to extend relations between the Ukrainian star and British promoter until the rematch date. As for Hearn and Joshua, neither opponents nor defeats can anyhow threaten their tight cooperation and friendship.
You recently signed the career-long deal with AJ. It means he trusts you.
Yeah.
Are you friends in normal life, or you just make money together?
No, definite friends. I think when you share so many experiences with someone over time, you become friends. We don't talk all the time, you know. I mean, maybe in this camp we spoke once a week, something like that, and I would go and see him a couple of times. But the respect is there, and it's like, you know when you have a really good friend, you don't need to see him all the time or speak to him all the time.
Yeah.
You know, my best friends, I see once every 2 months, you know, from school.
Yeah.
But they'll always be my best friends, and I'll always rely on them more than anyone else.
Yeah.
So AJ is at the position where, yes, the teams and Matchroom and 258 are non-stop meetings every day, Zoom calls every day, and he knows that I'm across everything. And that's how it is, you know, and that was a nice contract to sign. And I always knew at this stage we'd be together forever in terms of our promotional deals. Early on, like, this was his 4th contract he signed with us. The first one was, please God, let him sign with us. The next one was, hopefully he resigns. The next one was, I'm pretty sure he'll resign. And this was just a natural, and when we talk about lifetime, it is a lifetime deal, but it's career long. So, you know, he's only going to fight for another 5 or 6 years. And why do a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal and then another 2? Like, he just said, look, we're in it till the end. And that's a nice relationship to have. I've got to say, the easiest person I've ever dealt with, fighter-wise, above everyone, which, when you consider that his size is very unique, never one argument, you know? But he's the boss, and I always say that. And that's the thing, Alex, as well. I think that in this generation, which Bob and people like that would always struggle to do, every one of my fighters is my boss. Even the kid on the undercard on Saturday in 6 rounds. I work for them. And it doesn't hurt me to say it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I said, you know, I always say, Bob, you say that Loma or Terence Crawford is your boss and you work for them. I don't think he could say it. And my dad could, because it's a different generation. You know, the fighters work for the promoter. That's the old school mentality.
Yes.
But with AJ, I work for him, and that's my job. And, you know, and he may say, no, don't be silly, we're partners. But that's how I see it. That's my mindset. And you know, it's really good to enjoy a journey with someone when you both, you know, when it's enjoyable.
Did you ever bet on boxing?
Not really. In the UK, you're not allowed to bet as a licensed promoter. Maybe earlier, before I started doing boxing, but I'm actually quite a terrible tipster. You know, I always think that this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It never does. So I think that would be a bad idea.
So coming back to betting, did you ever bet on any other sports? Did you win? Did you lose?
Yeah, I used to bet on a bit of football, a bit of horse racing. Mm-hmm. Terrible, Alex. Terrible. Worse than my stocks, you know. So but I used to play a lot of poker. Quite high stakes. And you see, to be a great gambler, I'm not so sure there is such a thing. Mm-hmm. You have to be ruthless, and you have to be emotionless. Mm-hmm. So with money, right? So with me, I would play poker, and I could lose, I don't know, $50,000 in a game, and I wouldn't sleep for a week. You can't play like that. You know, you have to be fearless, and I can't. That's not me, because the way I was brought up was every penny counts. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And yes. When I was running the poker, I was playing with guys at poker in my tournaments who were betting millions of dollars on sports betting, millions. I would go into their suite in Vegas and there would be on the floor $25,000 chip from the Bellagio, the world is crazy.
Right.
Horrible world, horrible, you know. So I'm staying away from betting, away from stock markets, and just sticking to boxing.
And casinos, right?
Yeah.
How do you prefer to spend your earnings? You saving, investing, diversifying?
I'm not a big investor. I didn't get burnt in stocks once, but I lost money as a young man, probably early 20s. Mm-hmm. And at the time, like now, it's no money, but at the time it was horrible. And I just thought, I remember my dad saying to me, why are you getting involved with things you know nothing about? You know, and it's like, well, I spoke to this guy, or my friend who works in the city, and he said, are you mad? You know, invest in yourself, right? Like that's the key. So I don't, I have a few properties. I think my investment sort of mindset is quite poor, really, because I come from a mindset of being cash rich, which comes from my dad. You know, that's and I'm not a crazy spender. So yes, I have a couple of nice cars and some nice houses, but you won't see, if I can, you know, I don't have a private jet, but if I can fly private, that's a real treat, I think, for everyone. But I don't, you know, I don't live an exuberant lifestyle. I like going to nice restaurants. Who doesn't, you know? And I like going out with my friends every now and again and having a bit of a party. But, you know, I sort of, most of my spending is work related. I'm travelling to events, or I'm, you know, in a nice hotel. I like to be in a nice hotel, as we all do. But pretty straightforward, really.
How much time you spend in the airplane?
Well, I mean, coming back now into the normality after the pandemic, probably I'm flying once a week, you know, wherever it's going to be, unless there's a show in the UK back to back. But I was, you know, pre-pandemic, I was in the States nearly every other week, and it was jet lag doesn't exist because there's no time zone.
Yeah.
So it actually worked quite well for me, because I was people saying, aren't you tired? I say no, because if I'm tired, I go to sleep, and I'm so tired that when I need to go to sleep, I go to sleep.
Immediate.
And then when I started flying again, I was wrecked. You know, one flight to New York took me like 2 weeks to recover from it, you know? So, yeah, travelling a lot. And I work on the basis that I'm definitely not doing this forever, right? AJ said to me the other day, you promoters, he said, you will do this forever. You'll be 90. And I said, no way, no way. Because I look at Bob and Frank and Don King, and I just think, like, look at you getting angry, right? You know, on the interviews. And I know he loves it, but don't you want to be on a beach with a cocktail, looking back on your career going, thank God I'm out of that, you know? And I know it's very addictive. Right. But I say to AJ, actually, when you stop, I will stop. 5, 6, 7 years. Like, I don't see myself in boxing after 50, really. I want to do different things. It's not a pleasant lifestyle. You can't spend time with your family. You can't give them attention. You know, I get home from work, I'll be sitting at dinner, my wife's talking to me, and all I'm thinking about is this email that's just come through. And she goes to me, "What did I say?" And I go, "What?" She just goes, "Oh, forget it," and walks off with the kids. You know, it's like, you know, and that's, you have to be careful. You have to be careful of that.
Eddie, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you, sir.
That was an interesting one.